Welcome to the Fast Break Podcast. We're your hosts for the Hoosier Network. I'm Ari Betterly here with Ryan Costello and Sam Elster for the Hoosier Network, as I said before. But we have so much to break down today. The Big Ten tournament was last weekend, and it was really exciting. I can't lie. Indiana did pretty well, and they kind of shocked the world with, how well they played against USC, but we're going to get into that. But right now, I just kind of want to ask how your guys' weeks and how was the tournament for you both, going to the Big Ten tournament?
It was so fun. I love being able to see all the teams, be around other media, talk to people. I just think it's really cool. And Cambridge is such a world class facility, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was super cool. I feel like being able to be there and, watch those games live and in person and not have to cover them, remotely, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, same for myself. I feel like it was just really cool getting to just experience, some great talent that maybe we don't get to see every day on the floor. Obviously, they've all kind of traveled to Assembly Hall, but it's just different when in March, seeing everyone play their absolute best, kind of fighting for, their Big Ten spot, or not their Big Ten spot, their NCAA spots, and, fighting as a team to show we're the best. And we definitely saw that.
And Indiana really had a nice crowd, especially on the Friday game. It was loud, and I feel like that really helped them in both games.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely played their six-men position.
Mm-hmm.
Six men position. But yeah, let's get into it. So we get to the tournament on Thursday. Indiana obviously didn't play in that first round on Wednesday, but they come. We get there early in the morning, ready for them to play at noon against an Oregon team who's coming from the other side of the country. So mind you, they're technically playing at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Early.
But who wants to start off with this one? Okay.
I can do it. The Hoosiers, they just seemed ready from the tip. Before the first media timeout, they were up 15-4. They had forced 7 Oregon turnovers. It was really, I feel like a culmination of their best start to a game and just being ready to throw the first punch. Where in other games against opponents like Oregon throughout this season, we've seen them come out a little groggy, not be fully ready and focused, but they were focused this entire game, and it really was because of Shea Chesky. She had a great first quarter.
She did.
And she really just set the tone for Indiana. And we saw some bench play because Indiana got in foul trouble. They had 3 players, Yarden Garzone, Lily Meister, and Caroline Strickland, all with 3 fouls before the end of the first half. And we saw some Faith Wiseman. We really haven't seen her play a lot, but she played some key minutes on defense, getting a couple rebounds. And then the Hoosiers hit 11 threes, and they're 9-0, and they make 10 or more threes. So it was really just a good wire-to-wire win, and it's the kind of performance you want heading into March and showing the committee that you're worth it and you should be in the tournament, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like I liked a lot how we saw so much of the bench because it's not something that we've seen a lot throughout, Big Ten play. But I think that this bench is much stronger than what people think. Players like Faith Wiseman can come up and maybe not even record a point, but, have such a big impact on the game. And I think also going back to the first quarter, I think every game that they play, they need someone like Shea Chesky to be, that spark. Because when you come out and you have a lead of 15-4 before the first media timeout, that's huge. And I think that they just played a very complete game to the end.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Sam. When the Oregon coach sat in the press conference, he mentioned that. He said, once Indiana got rolling and had such a good, strong lead from Shea, or he didn't say Shea, but with their team playing so well in the first quarter, we were constantly climbing and fighting up a mountain that we could not, get to the top of because they just were so ready from the jump and we were not. And he said we never got ready. We never got settled after that. And that was kind of the way that we've been wanting to see Indiana play, especially in these kind of moments, and we saw that. And so I think it was really affirming, not only for maybe fans or people who cover the team, but also for themselves as a team. You could tell that they were proud of the way that they played, and Terry Morin was super satisfied with the way that her team performed that first day. And also I wanted to mention, even Yarden Garzone, even though she had all those fouls in the first half, she came back and she still led with 19 points, making 4 of 7 3-pointers, which is absolutely insane. And it kind of just shows a testament of this team. There are some shooters that can shoot. And when they're at their best, they can be a team that puts it all together.
And Garzone was at her best in both games. We saw it. She really just showed what she's capable of and really not letting the big moment define her.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe the foul trouble kind of, made them a little
Yeah.
pissed off. Because,
Yeah.
we know Terry looked a little pissed off when some of those questionable fouls were called. So they kind
Definitely.
of played with a little chip on their shoulder.
Yeah. And then there's this little nugget quote I liked that Sydney said about Faith that I put in my package. But she said, I think Faith has stayed ready all year. I think she's always the first player in the gym every single day. And even though she doesn't play many games or most games, she's still working out every single day, working on her craft and getting better. And I feel like all the players in this team can take a note from that because the way that she just came out there and was ready to go was really great.
And you need that in March because you don't know, and like if they make the tournament, if someone gets in foul trouble, you're gonna need the next man to step up.
Mhm.
So they just have to all be ready, like Terry Morin said
Yeah.
all season.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to move to USC?
Yes.
So, quite literally, 24 hours later, Indiana wakes up and they play another West Coast team. Of course, it's the number 2 seed and it's USC. But let's break that down. There was so much that happens. The star power from Juju Watkins and Kiki Irafin. And yeah, Sam, I'm going to throw it to you first.
So for the second time this season, they took USC down to the wire. It's pretty impressive because not a lot of teams in the country can say that they, did that one time to USC, but now twice. They started the game off, the USC defense was really blocking off the perimeter, so they used layups to really get it back into it. But Juju and Kiki were pretty much unstoppable. They played, Chloe Moore McNeil and Caroline Strickland. They played great defense, but it was just better offense. They had 52 points and 20 rebounds combined, and they both had a double-double, which is pretty impressive. And it was really a game of runs, but USC led for the final 13 minutes of the first half, which was pretty big. But then the second half, Shea and Yarden really went off. Shea had 11 points in the third quarter alone, and Yarden had 5 3-pointers and finished with 23 points, which was pretty wild. But Sydney Parrish fouled out with 5 minutes and 39 seconds left, and that was the earliest that she's ever fouled out in a game, she said. And she was really frustrated because she did not enjoy sitting on the bench and watching her team finish that game because she wanted to be out there. But when Sydney fouled out, you can kind of tell that the ball movement and the pace was just different for Indiana, and they didn't make a field goal for 3 minutes and 43 seconds to close the game and finished on 1 for 7 for a field goal. So they never had one moment where they could finish the game because I think USC just kind of had more of that spark than they did, and I think it was a very telling game that they can compete with these top teams.
Yeah.
I think it was such an energy thing with Sydney fouling out, even though I don't think she was having her best game ever.
Yeah.
She's a captain on this team and she leads by example. So I think her not being out on the court defending kind of just takes not the air out of the gym, but some of the momentum that Indiana had in that close game.
She's your glue guy. You always got to have that player that is the glue or is the chemistry builder on the floor who's always talking. If you see any team huddle or you see any team huddle on the court too, it's always Sydney instilling that confidence into maybe the underclassmen or making them feel as though we can do this, we can do this. And when you lose that voice, obviously there's other people that need to step up, but it's just not going to be the same. So I think that honestly made an impact on, those last couple minutes in that fourth quarter because, until then, it was very, very tight until then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they were just really struggling to get in a shot. And, they were also turning the ball over a decent amount. And they were taking shots that were not
high percentage.
High percentage, yes.
Mhm.
And, that was kind of when you were sitting there and you were like, you got to just let the game come to you.
Sometimes I feel like shot selection. Oh my God, that was like a
Shot selection.
Tongue twister.
Yeah, tongue
twister.
twister. Sometimes I feel like Indiana struggles with that because I feel like at moments this time when they're playing these really great teams, it's just been sometimes they have head scratching shots. You're like, I don't know if I would have done that, but I'm also not the coach, so.
Right. I think it's they're trying to get the fast break points, so they're trying to just get a run going, and then they just throw something up, and then it's okay, well, you could have taken 2 more seconds, and that would have been a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I understand the urgency they probably had against, the defense of a USC team where they're constantly, on them, or 2 people are on them at once. So I can't imagine personally having to be guarded by Juju Watkins or Kiki
No.
Irfin, but I'm never going to know. So,
Yeah.
One thing I think was impressive was they, I think, made 25 of 27 free throws, and
Yeah.
making your
Yeah.
free throws like that, especially in the tournament, will be really clutch and big.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that Indiana gave USC one of the more tougher battles that they've had this year. I mean, I know USC then went on to, playing Michigan, where they also had a, they were down for a majority, not majority, but they were down for
was
some
back and
that-
forth
It was
for a
back
lot
and
of-
forth,
yeah.
and then, obviously then won't spoil, but, then they didn't end up winning. But I think that, they've given them a pretty tough battle both times. And, in the presser with USC, Ryan, I know you mentioned that, they said that IU gave them a tough time both times around now.
Yeah, Lindsey Gottlieb, the USC coach, was like, Indiana definitely is a tournament team, but I just don't want them in our bracket,
Yeah.
because she's noticed that they've given them such a battle both times they've played this
Yeah,
season.
she's scared of
Yeah.
the Hoosiers.
and even Juju Watkins said on the broadcast, she mentioned Yarden Garzone
Yeah.
being, one of the toughest competitors she's faced in the Big Ten this year, and that I'm sure she was probably thinking the same thing. We don't want them in our side of the
We're like,
bracket.
put them on the other
Put
side.
them on the other side, because I think if Indiana plays the way they played USC, they could upset some teams like a potential team they may play in the tournament. But we'll talk about that pretty soon here. But overall, I think, again, this team played better than I think they've played all season. They finally put the pieces together at the right time, and they just need to keep treading upward. They're going in the right direction. So if they get that tournament bid, who knows what's to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you get the right pairings with teams that play to your strengths and they have this momentum, maybe they could win a couple games.
Yeah.
I'd like to shout out the scouts for Indiana. I feel like they scouted out both teams they played at the tournament pretty well.
Mhm.
And both coaches seemed caught off guard from the other teams, in
Yeah.
my opinion, during
Totally.
the press conferences.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they both were crediting Indiana a lot. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
all right.
Are we ready for hot topics?
Oh, yeah.
We are so ready.
So if you guys remember last week, we filled out brackets for the Big Ten tournament.
Yes, sadly.
Mine did not do very well. If you want to look at my
Bring it up a little higher.
bracket,
Little
Little
lower.
lower now.
lower. Okay.
Higher.
Little.
So yeah,
There
there it
you
is.
go.
You see all of this like red. That's because bracketology is not easy, and I'm not jealous of Joe Lenardi, Charlie Cream for ESPN. I mean, they put the brackets together, but I don't know. It's right. Like, every people are right that like putting a perfect bracket together is so hard because I have so much red.
Yeah. I think Sam and I did pretty good. We had about the same bracket.
Pretty
There's
well.
a couple of little tweaks at the beginning that may have been wrong, but overall we kind of were treading the right way with our Iowa run and our Indiana little run there.
Mhm.
But Sam, what was the things that we basically got wrong?
We got wait. Oh, I don't know why I exited those two out. We got basically Maryland wrong.
Okay. Which makes sense. Like, you wouldn't expect them
Yeah.
to go out that early,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
Yeah, it was basically Maryland that kind of screwed it over because Michigan went on that run, and
Nebraska.
Nebraska and Illinois. Yeah.
And then Iowa going to the.
I could see Nebraska doing that too. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
We saw their band unloading all their
yeah.
items
Oh,
from
yes.
the bus, and I thought that they were
That
in
it,
a
like,
car
fell,
accident. No,
But I think there were cones and stuff. So
Yeah, there
let's hope.
was.
Let's hope
Little
that
tuba in the street.
the Husker band was okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope the Husker band was okay.
Yeah, my bracket was really. I picked Minnesota to win. They got upset in their first game. I
Yeah.
picked
Yeah.
Wisconsin to win, and they lost to Iowa, who went on to win their next
2 games.
two
right?
games.
games.
Or
Yeah, they went to Ohio State.
yeah, went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And then I picked Illinois to win, and Nebraska had won. And
Mhm.
I had Maryland, and Maryland did not win. Michigan did.
Yeah.
So
I'm honestly not surprised. Your girl Silas Swords, she popped
she
off.
slayed
She
her and her
slayed.
teammates.
All
That
of
game
them.
against Maryland was something.
Yeah, it was.
Michigan jumped out such a big lead, then Maryland brought it all the way back, and then Michigan ended with a dominant victory. So
Yeah.
I would not want to play Michigan, and that leads us really well into our next question.
Yeah.
Which teams from the Big Ten do you think could have deep runs? I think Michigan, because of the battle they gave USC, they're neck and neck.
Yeah.
I know they have some freshmen like Silas Swords. But I really like the way that the Wolverines play ball. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iowa. They kept up with Ohio State. That was a pretty wire-to-wire win. But I think Iowa honestly showed that, with their win over Michigan State, I think they, showed that they do have like a veteran team that can kind of,
Yeah.
they can keep up with those teams. I think they're very similar with Indiana where like,
I agree.
they can fight and they can battle. And I think that, if Caitlin Clark goes to every single one of their games in March Madness,
They were
that
playing so hard with her sitting courtside. You
Yeah.
can't even deny
So
that.
I think that if they have Caitlin Clark and her aura in the building, that I think that they can pull off some upsets.
Her aura's crazy.
I saw a tweet. It was like Caitlin Clark or Iowa when Caitlin Clark is in the audience, and it was like a GIF of like LeBron James.
It's
'Cause
literally like
they
LeBron.
play like they're super
Listen,
woman when she's
I think
in
the
the audience.
whole like building just like went like
yeah,
okay.
literally.
Also, sorry, this is off topic, but I mean it's her aura. It's Caitlin's aura.
It
Her
is.
guns. Did you see her like?
Yeah, she's
going
ripped.
like,
she's gotten
literally
even
ripped.
more ripped.
Yeah.
in
I'm
the
excited. Let's
offseason.
talk WNBA when the
Scary.
season ends.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see what these guns are gonna bring.
Maybe we'll start the podcast.
Scary.
I'm
Who
down.
We'll
knows?
do that after we finish
I'm so
our
ready.
IU women's basketball one.
But no, I agree. I think Iowa has such a like deep culture and deep
Yeah.
rooted fan base like Indiana does. And you don't get many teams like that for women's basketball in the country. They're all growing, but Iowa is like that number one fan base. You cannot deny.
Yeah.
But yes, I think they'll make a run as well. But I think besides Iowa, Maryland, you can't count them out. Obviously didn't have the Big Ten tournament they wanted, but I don't think they really needed it. I mean, they have a secure spot in the NCAA tournament, and they're a confident team that's won a lot of pivotal games this season. When you have Cheyenne Sellers, who just a dominant force for this team, and she's proved that she's a leader and can always get the points they need. I think they're going to be just fine, and they can make a deep run because, I mean, this team. How many national championships has this team won? I mean, made deep runs in the tournament. Maybe not recently, but throughout time, historically, this Maryland team, knows how to go to a tournament, and this coaching staff, I'm sure, is like prepared to take them to the tournament. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make a deep run as well.
Yeah, Brenda Freese is a really good coach. When they came into the Big Ten, they won so many Big Ten tournaments in a row, and no one could stop them. But let's pivot back to Indiana. What do you guys think is the Hoosiers' ceiling for the tournament? Ari, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think the biggest thing that we've mentioned all season, and it'll kind of go along with what you both want to say as well. Sorry, my email. Ta-ding.
She's popular.
Popular with Outlook today. But I would say consistency. I think they need that same effort and almost like grittiness in the tournament the same way they did in the Big Ten tournament. The energy that Shea Chetsky, you mentioned, brought, and like the things that Sydney Parrish brought when she was, really feeling the game and being passionate and getting excited when like they'd shoot a three, or like even Yarden being like, let's go, like getting her team riled up. That's what they need, because when you're in the tournament, you're on the road, you're not at home.
Totally.
You need to be strong in your culture, and you need to be strong in what you have. So if they could put these other pieces you guys are going to mention together as well, and they bring that force of like from the jump that we're excited and we're ready to go, I think that they can do it. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm gonna say their defense. I feel like this has also been something that's been very consistent throughout the season, and I feel like their defense is just so strong. They play airtight defense, help defense. Claymore McNeil is really the leader of that pack. But I think
Juju?
Yeah, put her on Juju. I think that, also the coaching staff, their way that they scout teams that they potentially play, and, they find their best player and they put Chloe on them, and then, they find their second best player and they put Lexus on them when Lexus comes in the game.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think that their defense is very big and very also not spoken about enough because, while they do have, a pretty average amount of turnovers per game, they also force a decent amount of turnovers per game as well. So I think that'll be big. What about you, Ryan?
That's how Terry Moore built her program, on defense first. But I'm going to go with offense. I'm going to go with shooting. Like I said earlier in the podcast, Indiana is 9-0 when they shoot 10 or more threes. So if the Hoosiers can really get some of those clutch shots to go in the tournament, I don't see why they can't upset a first round, maybe upset in the second round.
Totally.
Let's see Yarden go off again.
Exactly. Yeah. But pivoting more of a national talk, What do you guys think, teams outside of the Big Ten, who do you think can go far? I can go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I think South Carolina, we saw how dominant they could be against Texas in the SEC championship. I love me some Dawn Staley. She's just
Class
such a
act.
class
What a
act,
lady.
such a good coach. She always gets the best players because I feel like she just South Carolina plays with the swagger that Dawn Staley has on the
Yes.
sidelines, and
I love
she
that.
keeps them together, and they're always such a fun team to watch.
They are. I
Yeah.
love her dog.
Oh,
Champ.
yes.
Yes. I saw that they did a TikTok all together, the team too, that like trim, and they're all like, and Dawn Stanley like popped in the back, and she's like,
Yes.
but it just
She
shows
seems
how
so
like
fun.
how fun
Yeah,
and
she
the energy
is.
of that team is. Like, I want to be Dawn Staley's
Yeah.
friend.
I do too, and I want to meet her dogs also.
Let's go find her dog.
Sam,
Yeah.
what about you? I think yours is someone that beat South Carolina this year.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna go with UConn. I think that they're peaking at the right time. Paige Beckers and Ozzy Fudd are just so good, and
So good.
while they're not in a very dominant conference, they had a tough schedule this year. I mean, they beat South Carolina, lost to Tennessee, but I think that they've also had such a realistic schedule. They faced those tough teams already. They got that experience out of the way to then go on to their not as hard conference schedule, which I think
Yeah.
is a very strategic way, honestly, to go about scheduling. So I think that when you have Paige Beckers and Ozzy Fudd on your team, I don't see you not going to the Final Four
Yeah.
or the Elite Eight.
And they have a coach and players that have been there and know how to
So
do
long.
it. So I feel like the lineage and the
Yeah.
experience makes it so easy for
I
them
mean,
to get there.
Personally, I've never seen like better basketball in my life
Yeah.
against the UConn Iowa game last year during the
Yeah.
Women's Final Four. That was the most
Mhm.
exciting
Mhm.
tournament I've ever watched. No offense, men's basketball, but
No,
I remember my family
was
and I were
way
like
more.
locked in on my computer. Like, it was so good. And I
Yeah.
think it's a testament to the UConn team of just being such a deep rooted team with these essential players like Paige Beckers who just make you love women's basketball.
Yeah.
And I think right before she goes to WNBA, I mean, it'd be like the icing on the cake for
It
her
would.
being like
It
the
would
number one
be.
pick.
It would
in
help
the
those
draft.
ratings too. If like her, Juju, Lauren
my
Betts, like there.
goodness.
Oh my God. There's a
It'd be
reason
fun.
why the woman had way more rating, or I would think the national championship
It was
last
such
year
a good tournament.
was 18 million, and then the men's was only 14. So
Oh yeah, it was better games.
Yeah,
It was.
they were
And
closer.
and
they
it
were
wasn't
more
only
fun.
because of Caitlin Clark. I mean, those other
No.
games too
They had
were
so many
just
talented
so
players.
good.
Angel
yeah.
Reese was still there too. It's,
Yeah. It was cinema.
Mhm.
It was
Pure
beautiful cinema. If I could relive it all over again, I would. I'm not kidding. Like, those are my favorite games to watch ever.
Who knows? We
But
might have
I
it again
was-
this year.
I was gonna say the Longhorns. I was gonna say Texas. But as we're sitting here, I just decided, I was like, I haven't brought them up today, but we really do need to bring them up. UCLA.
Yeah.
They beat USC in the Big Ten tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They have Lauren Betts, the all-around player. I mean, she is just a beast. And I think this team is going to make it very far. They're number one in the country. And you can't deny it now because now they beat Juju Watkins when they haven't been able to. And
They beat South Carolina earlier this
Yes.
season by like
Yeah.
double digits.
Yeah.
so they can show that like they've beat really, really good teams. And I can't wait to see them hopefully in a Final Four matchup with a UConn or a USC again or a South Carolina, which would be kind of like
Crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like you said, seeing that Lauren Betts, South Carolina matchup with the Paige Beckers,
Yeah.
Lauren Betts like showdown. I want to see how they match up.
I feel like Lauren Betts could do what Camila Cardoso did last year,
Totally.
being that
Yes.
dominant presence in the
Oh,
paint.
for sure.
And
Mhm.
South Carolina fed her like when they played IU,
Right.
when they played all their other teams, and I think that's what UCLA has to do to be successful. But the nice thing this year, I feel like, is there's so much parity. Like all of the top teams, like South Carolina lost to UCLA, but they beat Texas, and
Yeah.
UConn beat South Carolina. So they're all like playing each other and beating each
Kind
other.
of even playing field.
And I think it's going to
Totally.
make for an amazing tournament.
Yeah.
Again.
I've really just enjoyed how this tournament, you don't know who's going to win. There's not a
No.
clear outright winner. I mean, last year, South Carolina had like the perfect season, but like no one has that this year. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
think,
Everyone's lost.
yeah, like the biggest thing, I don't know if you guys watched the UCLA USC game,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
I mean, Lauren Betts just went off, and like I feel like that was very telling, and I think that was something that she needed because as soon as the final buzzer went off, she was
Ran to her
running. She was
teammates.
running,
It
and
was
then,
so cute.
but then she also made sure to look at the USC bench and I don't know
Yeah.
what she did, but she
She
yelled
was
at them,
so
and I think that's what she really needed, and the whole UCLA team needed before the tournament. To just
Right.
kind of get that win off of their belt after 2 losses.
Yeah.
Also, they're just so hungry. You can
Yeah.
see it. They have the passion that you need when you're going into March. They have that team energy, team chemistry, just kind of like a similar vibe to South Carolina, in my opinion, where they seem very connected as a team.
Yeah.
And when you're going into March and you're going to be playing many games back to back, maybe on the road, obviously at home for them, but you got to have that deep rooted connection with your team. And I think they have it. I think they could be a top contender to do it all this year.
It's all
I
just going to be
agree.
so fun, and it makes sense why I saw a couple days ago ESPN said it was the most viewed regular season in 20 years, and people said they're like, oh, Caitlin's going to leave and no one's going to watch it, but more people watched it than they did altogether last year,
Yeah.
so it's impressive.
I guess you
Mhm.
could argue too. I think there's more individual stars in different teams now that Caitlin's not here. I think the focus all was pretty much
It
on
was on her
Caitlin.
shoulders.
Right. It was
Mhm.
Caitlin and the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
But now it's okay, now you have Lauren Best, Juju, Paige, you have so
All of
many
these stars,
all
and
these
it's so
stars.
fun.
Yes,
So
so
many.
much fun.
It is.
We have spring break next week, but we'll come back
Yes.
and in 2 weeks we'll know who won the first 2 rounds, and
Yeah.
we'll see if Indiana's able to make a run.
I
Mm-hmm.
know. So I guess this might be the last time we're talking before we find out if Indiana is still in this or not. How do
Yeah.
you guys feel about that?
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. I think they'll be in. It's just a matter of what seed they'll get.
And how far if they're able to win a
Yeah.
game.
Make
or
a
two.
run.
Yeah.
I said that assuming they're gonna make it.
I think they'll make it.
I think they'll be in.
they were a 10 seed in ESPN's
Yeah,
predictions.
I'm actually checking that. Yeah, they're a 10
so
seed
I think
right
if
now.
they were an 11, it might be a little bit shaky.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
think, like you said, with the way they played in the Big
Mhm.
Ten tournament and the teams that they beat, Ohio State win is big. I don't think they need to be nervous if they're
No.
going to make
They've
it.
got the
I just
quad
gonna-
one wins under
yeah.
their belt now, and they've played really good ball against both. They weren't being blown out ever by USC or UCLA.
Mhm.
They were
No.
in such a short distance, so they're right up there with the good teams, and I
Mhm.
think that they can hopefully make a run. One last thing I want to ask you: in the bracketology right now, it shows them potentially playing 2 teams. One of these teams being TCU, and the other, wasn't it Villanova?
I think it was
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has probably the National Freshman of the Year
Yeah.
on their team. So neither of those teams are really teams you want to face, but that's how it goes when you're in March Madness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
Every
anyone
team's
have
gonna be
any
a tough
insight
out.
they want to share about that? Because I feel like
I mean,
I think a potential second round matchup with TCU would be fun because
be
you
fun.
have Sodota Prince and Sydney Parrish who played together. Sydney Parrish's freshman year at Oregon. So that would be fun. But it's going to be interesting to see how Indiana is going to play on the road because the last 3 years they've been able to play inside of Assembly Hall. So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how
yeah.
Hoosier Nation travels and how Indiana's able to do on the road.
Totally. I mean, Vanderbilt also, if they do end up playing them, this is also a pretty decent team that, they're in one of the harder conference, the SEC. So
yeah.
I think that I'm looking at their schedule right now. They have a pretty, similar resume as Indiana. They've lost those games against Texas and,
But they won
South
against
Carolina,
Tennessee,
but then they won against Tennessee. So it kind of reminds me of
and
how
Indiana,
how
right.
Indiana's won against Ohio State, but they did lose to those other ranked teams. So that could be a really fun first game matchup.
It's going to be cinema the whole
is.
tournament.
I agree.
Cinema.
I think it'll be very interesting. I hope that Indiana, brings their best, but I hope the other teams do too, because that'll make great basketball, and that's what it's all about in March, and we can't
Yes.
forget that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Totally.
Okay, well, I think we're safe to say that this is the point in the podcast where I'm tapping around the buttons and I can't find the camera. And
There we go.
are ending the podcast. But this has been the Fast Break Podcast with your hosts, Ari Betterly, Ryan Costello, and Sam Elster. And we will catch you up in about 2 weeks after the NCAA tournament started. So much is up in the air. So many questions you all have, we all have. So feel free to leave them down below, and we'll catch you next time.